Hi, my name is Monica, and I'll be your OET trainer for today. If you are looking for the correct answer option, which one that is, then you can skip right ahead towards the end of this video. That's where you'll find the answer. But if you are a student who's preparing for the OET reading exam and wants to learn how to answer these kinds of questions in your Part C, then keep watching the entire video. Now, coming back to the question, here the writer uses the term what the exam maker uses the term, what point does the writer make in this paragraph? Whenever you get a question like this, I want you to first understand and identify what kind of question type it is. Because if you identify the question type correctly, then you're going to apply the right reading technique to this paragraph. And you would end up, well, saving a lot of time in the process and getting to the right answer. Now, what kind of question it is? Well, this is what we call a gist question. In a gist question, what happens is that you want to identify in your paragraph what all different kinds of ideas are there. Because a gist question is not focused on details. Details don't matter here. What we want to understand is the overview of this paragraph. If somebody asked you, for example, what was this video about that you're watching right now? So you want to say that ma'am is teaching me how to answer Part C questions. Or you could also say that ma'am is teaching me how to answer just questions, right? But you will not say ma'am is teaching me how answer option A is wrong, because that's not what is happening in the entire video. What's happening in the entire video is a general gist that I'm teaching you techniques to answer the question. I'm teaching you reading technique, right? So we want to focus on the overview, the basic gist of this entire paragraph, what's happening here, not the details. So if you want to answer a gist question, how we do that? We do that by first recognizing the different ideas in the paragraph. Remember, gist does not mean what is the main idea. That's what a lot of people get confused by. A gist could simply be a combination of three ideas which are being discussed in the paragraph. It could be a combination of two ideas out of the three ones, or it could simply be just one of those ideas, right? Now, how are you going to identify the different ideas in the paragraph? Well, you're going to identify the different ideas in your paragraph by a particular reading technique. First of all, the very first sentence in your paragraph, that's what we call sometimes the topic sentence as well. You are going to read that particular sentence carefully. Just only that sentence, nothing else. You understand what it says. And then in the next sentence, you are going to check if the next sentence is actually agreeing or disagreeing with that particular sentence. That means the idea in that sentence. And I want you to skim here. I don't want you to read it carefully, word by word. No, just skim it. Is it supporting the previous sentence? If yes, then yes, it is the same idea and we don't need to take notice. But if by skimming you recognize that it is actually disagreeing with the previous sentence, it's actually going in a different direction. If that happens, then that means it's a different idea. And if it's a different idea, I want you to mark it as a different idea. If it's the same idea, you keep on going and you do the same thing for the remaining paragraph. And when you keep doing the same thing for this entire paragraph, you will actually be skimming. Remember, you will be skimming, not reading carefully, because you are just checking agreement with the previous one, disagreement with the previous one. If it's a different one, read carefully. If it's a same one, you keep on going. You already know the idea, right? So in this way, you will get to the overall gist of this paragraph by saying, ma'am, there are three things happening in this entire paragraph, and these are three things. So you should be able to provide me a summary of this entire paragraph. This is important. When students are preparing and they have spent a lot of time on the paragraph, after that, I ask them often, can you give me a summary of what you have read or what you have found in this paragraph? They are able to recall one sentence that they read in the paragraph, but they are not able to tell me what's happening in the entire paragraph. Check yourself. If you are preparing by yourself at home, do this. After reviewing that paragraph within a given time, If you are able to summarize the number of ideas which are there, then what's happening is that you are able to provide me a gist of the paragraph in your own words. If you are not able to do that, then that means you were not looking for the gist. Instead, you were reading, 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 but nothing was going here. You were passively reading, and you were reading each and every sentence very carefully, not skimming. You are supposed to skim here because details you will not be able to remember. You will not be able to retain that information here. So that's not required. If you're able to summarize, you're good to go. If you're not able to summarize, go back. You're doing something wrong with your reading technique. Coming back to this, skim, gist. Remember, details do not matter, don't matter. If there is any detail, you can always go back and confirm, but gist is what we are looking for. The summary could be, yes, ma'am, there is one idea, there are two ideas, there are three ideas, and the answer choice could be any of these, any one of these, or a combination of all three. We don't care because we are still aware of the ideas and we can use that to our advantage when you are answering such question. So now that we have understood how to answer this question, let's read the paragraph and figure out what point is the writer making here. Although this, I don't know what this is referring to because I can't read the previous part, but I still will be able to get to the answer here. Does not prove that detected virus was viable and replicating what? The relative frequency of this and the clear signatures of this in the this strongly point to the presence of virus that is replicating over several months. So they are basically saying that strongly we are suggesting something is happening. Okay, that's the sentence I've read. Several months at least. At least. We don't know for how long it is doing, but it is definitely the detected virus is replicating. It was viable and it is replicating over several months. Got it. What else? Then they use the word importantly. That should bring my attention. The persistent infection, because if something is happening for a lot of the time, it's persistent infection, right? That's idea number one here. The persistent infection was associated with this 55% higher chance of long COVID symptoms at 12 weeks or more after the infection. Okay, I think they are still saying the same thing over several months. I think I would call this persistent infection was long COVID. I guess I would call it a different idea, a second idea. Maybe that's another thing they're telling. This worked convincingly. So convincingly, that means we are convinced. Three things I am getting to know from this entire thing. Number one, what is that thing? That the viral persistence, whatever that is, that's happening for over at least a few months, 12 months, over a year at least. No, 12 months, several months it's happening. We don't know for how long. And then they gave me an example and they told me that, there's a higher chance of COVID happening here at 12 weeks or more. So the associated chance is the second idea. The third idea is that, listen, this is delayed and this is not what we thought early on. This is in fact more than that. So that's that little bit of, I would say, unpredictable nature is the third thing. Then we go back to the second idea again. That's it. That's all there was to it. Now let's answer. Virus remains active. Virus is remaining active. Virus is ongoing. The persistence, that's what they mean. Indefinitely. I know it's wrong. Why do I know it's wrong? Because I know they told me that it is happening for at least a few months, but they told me the lower limit, that at least for a few months it's happening, but they didn't tell me the higher limit, the upper limit. Where does it end? They haven't told me. They haven't also told me that it's indefinite. We don't know if it is indefinite. They said much longer, that they haven't said for their entire lifetime. This is why I know it is wrong. They're definitely telling me it is indefinite, but they are saying we don't know for how long. Then viral persistence rarely contributes to long COVID, but they are saying there's a 55% higher chance of long COVID symptoms associated with persistent infection. Importantly, this is telling us, this is convincing us, this is not even in debate. So this is the opposite of what my paragraph is telling me actually. Based on this, I know B is also wrong. There's only two options remain. If you have liked the video so far and you want me to keep making such videos more in the future, then like and subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends. All right? Coming back to the question now. Answer option C. Some infections last longer than expected. I am happy with this part about last longer than expected, right? Because they did not think it would last that long because it is much longer than previously thought. However, I need to check this part about some infections. Is it correct or is it not? So this does not prove the detected virus was viable, replicating the relative frequent observation of rebounding viral genome nodes and the clear signatures of positive persistent genome sequence coverage, presence of virus or replicating over several months. This work demonstrated that virus clearance from this is delayed. Many people, I think I could go with it. Maybe I could not go with it. I am not sure. I think I'm not happy with the some infections part. I think that's too much technical detail that I don't understand. But I know this part is correct. So if I think D is completely wrong, I am confident that D is wrong, then I can choose C. Or if I'm confident that D is 100% correct, then I can just C. C is wrong. Some people remain contagious for months. Is that the point that the writer is trying to make? That some people remain contagious for months. Okay, then. I know that for months they have this infection. I know that part is correct about months. But what I'm not sure about is the part about remaining contagious. I don't think I saw something about contagiousness. Let's see if I found it. Several months at least, the virus is replicating within their own body. Clearance, the virus clearance from the respiratory tract, not from the population group. They didn't talk about the contagious nature of the virus at all in this entire paragraph. I know if this isn't even talked about, then how can this be the right answer? So even with that slight confusion, I still know that C answer is going to be my correct answer because I have 100%, with a 100% confidence, I have eliminated A, B, and D. So my confusion about C, slight confusion about C, does not matter when I know for a fact that the other answer options are wrong. This is why elimination is important before you choose the right answer. Because if you're trying to choose the right answer, you will look for the answer in the answer choices. But what if you're not able to recognize the correct answer because of how heavily it is paraphrased for you? In that case, elimination would be your God. So work with elimination. You will always be sure about whether or not you're choosing the correct answer. And elimination works on literally each and every word's meaning in your answer choice, not just the entire sentence, not just a certain section of the sentence. So I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.